So this is how we make our energy today. The majority is in oil, coal and gas. Nuclear is sort of rising quickly, and then the renewables are down here. This is for a total for humanity of about 18 terawatts. You probably have heard numbers that are lower than 18. That's because a lot of agencies like the International Energy Agency don't count a lot of the plant matter that is used in mostly developing countries in the equation. That's how we do it. You can sort of get the breakdown of the industries that use that power. And then you might say, well, if we've got to go from 16 terawatts, or 12 of those 16 made by fossil fuels, and we've got to get them from somewhere else, where else can you get them from? So the good news is there's 85,000 terawatts of solar energy hitting the planet, so solar is a great idea. In second place, there's wind, 3,600 terawatts of wind. That's a number much larger than humanity's power consumption. The bad news is if you extracted all the energy in every single wave that hits every single coastline on the planet, you only use 1/5 of humanity's power supply. If you extracted all of the power from the tides, that's what the moon does, making the tides up and down, go up and down, you only get 1/5 of humanity's power supply. And if you extracted the energy in every river in the world, you only get half of humanity's power supply. So this sort of puts in perspective, we've got to do solar, we've got to do wind, that's why I work on wind as my day job. Even photosynthesis, so this is every living thing is about 90 terawatts or 65 terawatts on land. So there's actually not as much in biofuels as people often think. So here's the equation for humanity. Our current demand is 16 terawatts. Let's assume that we want to hold that constant. We might be able to stabilize at about 3 terawatts of fossil fuel. There's about 1.5 terawatts of nuclear and renewables today. So in roughly 25 years, we need to do 16 minus those things. We need to make 11.5 terawatts of new clean energy. How the hell do you do that? Let's just take a guess. We'll do 0.5 terawatt of biofuels, 3 terawatts of nuclear, 2 terawatts of geothermal, 2 of wind, 2 of solar, 2 of photovoltaic. You can change the proportions around, but it's not really going to change the industrial effort that I'm about to expose to you. What do you have to build to do that? And it looks roughly like this. You've got to build 100 square meters of solar cells every second for the next 25 years, second after second. That's for 2 terawatts of solar. This is good, 15% efficient solar cells, so very kind of ambitious technology. Solar thermal, it'll be 50 square meters of mirrors. So solar thermal is where you take mirrors, you focus all that light on a heat engine. 50 square meters of mirrors installed somewhere in the world every second for the next 25 years. Again, an ambitious, high efficiency of 30%. For wind, you'd be installing the largest wind turbine you've ever seen, which is a 3 megawatt, 100 meter diameter, so it dwarfs this theatre wind turbine, and you've got to install one of those every 5 minutes for the next 25 years. Nuclear power plants, you've got to do one 3 gigawatt nuclear power plant every week for the next 25 years. To put that in perspective, America, I think, has 8 slated for approval in the next decade. So just slightly behind schedule. But this is the scale you need to think if you really want to hit your goal. I forgot about geothermal. You've got to do 3 100 megawatt steam turbines every day for the next 25 years. So 100 megawatt steam turbine is bigger than this room, and then you've got to drill a couple of mile deep holes on either side of it. And you've got to do 3 of those every day. And then in terms of biofuels, just in case there's someone who's passionate about biofuels in the audience, you've got to do an Olympic swimming pool of genetically engineered algae every second for the next 25 years. Now, this is a really high efficiency algae. We're not even in the ballpark of that efficient yet, but let's assume that exists. Then you might say, well, I don't want to dig that many swimming pools. So then you might say, why don't we just fill in the land formation? It would be like Wyoming and Idaho or something, right? Of just a green carpet of algae for those biofuels. So, you might say, holy crap, that's what I said, not so politely. And then you say, is that industrially possible? Another way of answering this question is, what should Detroit actually do? I won't pick on Detroit yet. So, America produces 110 billion aluminum cans every year. If you slice those cans in half and you unroll them and you polish them nicely so they were mirrors, and you laid them out into a solar mirror farm, it would be the equivalent of 200 gigawatts of solar thermal every year. So I have a killer business plan for Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They return to their original business model of shipping sugar and flavouring around the country. That way they don't have to use all that energy to ship all the bubbly water and the cans with it. And then they take their existing industrial plant and they convert it to solar thermal. So I'm predicting here today, Coca-Cola will be the biggest solar thermal producer within 10 years, and that would be great news. 200 gigawatts of solar thermal every year would mean that Coke and Pepsi could do those 2 terawatts by themselves in 10 years, right? So that's good news. Nokia makes 5 phones every second, roughly. I've heard it might be a little more. I'm sure this year it's probably going to be a little less. Nokia, Intel, AMD, Apple, IBM, if you sort of put all of their industrial effort together, that's probably about enough to make all of the photovoltaics you need on that timescale. But you need to think very ambitiously like that. This is how quickly your slides go out of date. When I made this slide, General Motors in fact made 1 car every 2 minutes and 1 transmission every 1 minute. I think that's down 50%. But GM and Ford together could make one of those wind turbines every 5 minutes. So it is industrially possible. And one of the interesting stories, so a lot of people often say we need an Apollo project, we need a Manhattan project for energy. I think it's a lot more like retooling for World War II. So in 1939, America was making less than 1,000 aircraft a year. And then they said, oh, we need bombers. And then by 1945, they were producing more than 100,000 aircraft a year in refrigerator factories. So Frigidaire made aircraft in World War II. So that's possible. Oh, here's the good news slide. Everyone was waiting for a good news slide. All right, so you're like, oh my God, we've totally transformed industry. We're fighting a war effort, except this time Japan, Germany, and Britain and America are all on the same team. Can you still do it? And the reality is we can, and there's actually existence proof. So in the last 40 years, we went from 5 to 15 terawatts, so 10 terawatts of installed power generating capacity in the last 40 years. So we kind of just have to do what we did in the last 40 years again, a little bit quicker, but then we're better at making stuff. But we have to do it radically differently. So it's not pipelines and fossil fuels this time.